And welcome to episode 106 of the Redman Group. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, co-founder of the Redman Group, CEO of the Redman Group, founder of 21 Convention, founder of 22 Convention, founder of 21 Studios, and anything else on the internet I feel like triggering people with. Today I'm going to be hosting the episode of the show, and I have a big panel with me today, including Zach, formerly known as Hunter Drew, aka Hunter Drew from the Family Alpha and Fraternity of Excellence, DDJ from Miss Andrea Today. You can find him as well on YouTube, Miss Andrea Today, and his website, missandreatoday.com. And Noah Ravoy from smv4k.com right there. All these men are former panelists in the show. And in the case of Zach and Noah, they're actually former speakers at 21Con as well. In Hunter's case, several times over. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me for today's show. I think it's going to be one hell of a roundtable.
Thanks for having us.
That's the most timely topic of 2020, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, this whole year has just been trying to figure out the best spacing for this. Yeah, I mean, this whole year has just been unreal, man. I mean, from day one, from a Manosphere perspective, obviously, with the Make Women Great Again thing, that whole explosion of media, and then obviously, the pandemic stuff, and then now these fucking riots that have broken out, not just out around America, but around the world. It's like it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah, this whole year just feels like a fucking, like a riding a rocket or a rocket bear ass or something, like a Wile E. Coyote kind of thing.
Yeah. You got a dam and the water keeps filling up and up. There's a certain point where it breaks suddenly. It's years and years of problems accumulating. They're just finally, the dam is breaking now.
Yeah. And so what I wanted to focus on this episode, guys, is basically the riots from a Manosphere perspective. And as the title indicates, the Fatherless Rebellion, I really believe that, the single motherhood phenomena that's increased dramatically over the past 100 years. I think in America, it went from like 2% to like 40 now or 39 or something. Obviously, the Black community got hit with that hardest and first, and now over the past several decades, it's spread to every other race and demographic in America, and it's universally devastating for children. There's been books on that. Obviously, we've talked about it on the show before. I think DDJ has done a lot of videos on it. It's a very well-known topic in the Manosphere, but the consequences are serious, and I think we're seeing that now to scale that we've never seen before. And hence the title of the show. Before we even get into the more content, though, I want to say this episode is sponsored by 21university.com and 21Con. Tickets will be out soon to the main event. I'm just waiting for the riots to stop a little bit, maybe the cities to stop burning down. It seems like every day there's a new massive emergency that is just like, holy shit, what is going on? Also, before we get into that, some books I want to recommend on the subject, The Way of Men, from speaker Jack Donovan from 21Con. I really feel, and if you guys have input on this as well, you can comment. I feel like we're watching this book like a live action movie of this book play out every day now. It's a book of masculinity, but also tribalism and how human beings operate, particularly men. Another one, of course, is from DDJ, The Feminist Lie. Feminism's a load of shit. It was never about equality. And this will explain a lot in more intricate detail with stats and history about why feminism is a crock of shit. And I think in many ways it's fueled what we're seeing now. Complex PTSD, a book recommended to me by speaker Richard Grannon from 21 Convention. I think a lot of these kids have had the shit kicked out of them growing up by single moms and whatnot. And the result is complex PTSD and unhinged behavior like flipping cop cars. Finally, The Boy Crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell. A really great book, and I think it's basically, it came out in 2018. And I think it's more or less a Bible in terms of stats and like really detailed explanations on like the boy crisis, how men and fathers and boys are treated in America, and how devastating it is, beyond just the self-improvement and more practical advice angle that we focus on here on the shows. So that's my book rant. Buy the books, boys. So, gentlemen, from each of your perspectives, because, Hunter, you haven't been in the show in a little while. Zach, sorry. I'm used to calling you Hunter.
I'm still trying to figure it out, too.
Yeah. DDJ was on last week with me, but Noah, Hunter, what are some of your basic thoughts on like what the fuck has happened in America over the past 7 days, particularly with regard to your expertise and what you focus on with your businesses that you run and the men you work with?
I think this has been brewing for quite a while. I put out a video, maybe it's 3 weeks ago now. And in the video at the end, the person I was interviewing, we started saying that we're on the verge of the underfathered. I don't call them fatherless because some of them have a father. He's just not doing anything. They're underfathered children are going to either find a place or burn down society. And turns out that was prophetic, because a couple weeks after that, they started burning everything down. A lot of people, I think everyone recognizes this is not about an individual who was killed by police. This is not even about police brutality itself. This is about people who have no place in society, who were never taught how to integrate into society, burning down the society they can't be a part of. If they can't have it, nobody can, and they're burning it down. And to a large extent, this is a situation that they were thrust into as well.
Before we continue, I want to make sure we get in our fifth panelist for today, the one and only Donovan Sharp from the Sharp Reality. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
Hey, good, man. Good to have you on. Been a little while.
Yeah, it has. I'm super busy, man. The growth has been pretty remarkable. I'm actually going to join the show twice, because as soon as I get done editing my videos here in my studio, I'm going to join you guys from my gym. That way I can be on the entire show with everybody. But yeah, it's definitely good to be here with you guys.
Fuck yeah. Continuing on that, Noah, if you want to continue on that, or Hunter, if you want to jump in, just some thoughts on what you're seeing. I mean, this has been unreal. I think at least for me and Hunter, I don't know, be Hunter, but I'm not old enough to remember anything about the LA riots. I was like 3-4 years old.
Oh yeah.
So seeing this go down has just been like holy fucking shit.
No, it's crazy. I mean, you're looking at the news and you're like, this is America. There are literal streets burning. To Noah's point, though, we were speaking earlier about how people who are like the normies, people who aren't involved in this type of content discussion, they aren't aware of how many crazy people there are in the world. They're not aware of saying the wrong thing will lead to hordes of people absolutely losing their minds. If you say a tweet a certain way, they'll send you death threats. Anthony, you've experienced this. It's crazy, but my family doesn't know that. They don't see that. They're not a part of the Manosphere. They're not a part of any sort of social groups that we have going here. So to them, this is like totally broadside of them. And also to Noah's point, with the lack of fathers, I believe that you need a present and active father to instill not just standards, but also the maturity of the child to elevate above my emotions or how I react. I'm going to have emotional responses. And I'm going to have an emotional outburst, and that will make me feel good. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of is these adults, these young adults, were never told it's okay to be mad. You don't have to stamp your feet when you're mad. You've got to channel that. You've got to process it. And they don't know how. So for us looking outside, it's easy to say these guys are a bunch of clowns. Like, this is insane, but they don't have any other framework to work off of. That's all they know is if I yell, I get what I want. So I'm going to go yell at the president and he's going to give me money or resources or whatever it is.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, Zach. It's about frameworks. Every child is born with a chaotic mind. And, if your 5-year-old has a fit, that's a 5-year-old. That's what they do. You, as a father, you stay calm. You demonstrate how you stay calm in the face of, unruled emotions. If your kid's still doing that at 15 and at 25, you've got a problem. That chaos that's in the mind of the children, the mother preps the child to be able to have that structured, but it's really the father who does the structuring. And you can, we coach young men. You meet a young man, you meet a young woman, and you immediately know what her relationship with her father is, or what his relationship with his father is. By my first question is, why don't you ask your dad these questions? Why do you have to come to a stranger to ask questions? And there is always a legitimate reason why their dad isn't able to answer the questions. And it's very telling that there are so many people in society like this, and there's very few people helping them.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man. The parents failed, It's like looking at all this stuff, and it's not just, the boomer parents. It's been a multi-generational thing. Failure after failure after failure after failure. And it's really starting to stack up. And
I'd like to weigh in when you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So here's the thing. I mean, I think it's overly simplistic for us to just go after fathers in and of themselves. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, it's a failure of fatherhood. But the issue here is that if you look at these kids in school, especially in the last 15 years, we don't teach civics anymore. We don't teach the value of our political life. We used to. We used to teach civics. We used to teach about the Constitution. We used to teach about the tricameral form of government. We don't do that anymore. In fact, everybody tries to stay away from politics to the point where if you're going to have a conversation about politics, somehow that's bad unless you take a very communist viewpoint. And the other side is not only is this an attack on fathers, but it's an attack on men and boys in general. And so like in the schools, for example, we don't have any opportunities as young men anymore to work with our hands. There's no shop classes. There's no building classes. We used to have recess. Recess primarily helped boys because it allowed them to have an outlet. And so when it came to these types of things, it was an issue. I remember when I was in elementary school and junior high, you would get into fistfights out on the playground. This was a normal behavior for young men. Today, a young man who gets into a fistfight has the police called on him, has a restraining order. This kid could be 12 years old, 11 years old. And that's an issue. And so, whereas when I was a child, they'd be like, you know what, you both got into the fight, you know, you have to stay after school or you have to stay in for recess. You got grounded to the school, and everybody moved on with their day because they understand it wasn't a big issue, and they understand that this is how young boys process. And part of teaching that is being supportive, but also being mature. Now, in transposing that with actual fatherhood, not only are these children, and I don't mean to say like infantilizing them at all, but you know, a lot of these millennials, not only do these millennials who are protesting not have a father, but the thing about it is that fathers, starting back as early as Gen X, which is my generation, they don't have the support they need as well because they were sold a lie by feminism. Feminism was always about being single versus the nuclear family. That is a false dichotomy. And I've said this many times before. The nuclear family is and has always been a lie. Extended families are successful for a reason. You know, when you have aunts and uncles and when you have people that have these close familial ties or the ties you create, those things are what keeps families alive. Because here's the reality. You know, as a father, if I don't have the support that I need, now, all of a sudden, I'm not going to be as good of a father for my children because nobody exists in a vacuum. And socially isolating yourself with this idea that, you know, oh, I'll just be more alpha, bro. That's retarded. I mean, the reason why Zach's Fraternity of Excellence works so well, the reason why programs like that are so successful is because men can't exist on an island and they need support of other men. That's why the Red Band Group exists. That's why 21 Convention exists. That's why many of these communities in the Manosphere exist, these different tribes. It's because we all need support. And I don't care who you are, and I don't care how alpha you are or how alpha you think you are. The point is that the storm comes from everybody. And men who have that positive support are able and in a better position to be able to support their wives, their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, and their nephews. And that's, I think, is something that's extremely important. And when a lot of people talk about these issues, it's something that's missed from the conversation. Yeah. And you know, and every man here and every man that I've met associated with 21 has been fantastic. But the thing about it is that all of us have been made better by our communications, our agreements, and even our disagreements that we've had with everybody else. We all grow from that. And that is something that has been missing from the lives of many of these protesters. And frankly, when it comes to this, the last point I want to make is, you know, Anthony, you made a comment about how this is compared to the LA riots. I don't think that that's the right comparison. I think the more accurate comparison, and the reason I bring this up, and I'll go into some points here, and then I'll shut the fuck up. But the reason that I think that the comparison we should make, we need to look at what happened in Ukraine in 2013 and 2014. What's happening right now across the country in the major urban shitholes is. And by the way, they were shitholes before the riots. But the reason that this is happening the way it is, you can see this from Ukraine. Police officers are being targeted. Police officers are resigning in droves because they're being targeted, because they're being harassed. The only difference between the police officers being targeted in Ukraine leading up to the coup and the color revolution in 2014 and here is that officers aren't having their families preyed upon yet. In Ukraine, they were doxing the addresses of police officers, going to their houses, threatening their family, beating their wives, beating their children, beating these officers, burning their houses down. And today, what's happening in these riots, in these major left-wing shitholes, is they're defunding the police. They are going after individual officers for discipline and things like that. I'm an old school civil rights advocate, like a Martin Luther King style civil rights advocate. And I remember that if you really wanted to call this a protest and you want to pass the straight face test, one of the things that you really need to focus on is the fact that the reason that civil rights advocates throughout history, and I say, civil rights history from the 60s to, let's say, the 80s, the reason why those protests occurred is because justice was not being done, because an officer would murder somebody, and that's how it was perceived, and then nothing would happen to them. And I'm not saying, just so we're clear, I'm not saying that the officers have a history of going after and killing anybody because of the color of their skin. Accidents happen, but anytime something is perceived as racist, where somebody does a knee-jerk reaction, the protests happen because they don't believe justice is happening. This is not the case in the George Floyd issue. Okay, the officer who everybody is accusing of murder, he got charged. He's in jail. The other 3 officers who were involved, they got charged. They were in jail. That should tell you something. The fact that these protests are continuing. The other issue here is what is very similar between the riots and the color revolution that is currently happening in the United States compared to the Ukraine, is they were doing the same thing. The same tactics. Again, targeting individuals on the street, burning stuff down, projecting what they're doing upon the other side, and creating these false flag operations. And you'll notice that every one of these protesters is extremely well funded. They have medics. They have medical support on staff. They've got first aid. They've got military training. They've got asymmetrical warfare training.
Well, I think you mean the rioters. Like there's a lot of people walking around protesting. That's a little different.
I'm not talking about protesters. I'm specifically reserving these comments for rioters. And yes, I agree with that. But they've been practicing for 3.5 years. And the reality is anybody who's had any kind of military experience knows that if you've been training for war for 3.5 years, you're not as much of a soy boy as you were previously. But that said, I in closing, to reiterate one last time, this is more of a color revolution in the way that the 2014 color revolution happened in Ukraine, and in the same way with regard to social media, the way the Arab Spring happened between 2009 and 2011. This is very well focused, and it is a top-down movement, and it is very well funded, and it is very well organized. And if we treat this as though it's just on the surface, oh, they're mostly peaceful protesters. Yeah, there's a lot of peaceful protesters out there who are protesting for what they think is right, and that's great that they stand by their conscience. But the ones who are being violent, the rioters, their goal is nothing less than the overthrow of the United States and overthrow of capitalism. That's why they're targeting symbols of capitalism.
Yep. Well put. Donovan, you want to hop in?
Absolutely, a lot of that, like the color revolutions that we're in. Oh, I'm sorry, that you're going.
That's good.
That's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm editing. I'm doing all my other stuff. But yeah, I mean, when Noah finishes his thoughts, I'll jump in. It's no problem.
Okay. Noah?
A big part of the reason why those color revolutions worked is because of the large number of disaffected young men. Whenever you have a large group of young men that have no place in society, that don't have jobs, women, children, so, some sort of a stability in life, and they feel that there's no point in creating that because it could be taken away from them at any moment by divorce courts or whatever, you're going to have a lot of anger and a lot of people with nothing to lose. It's very easy for manipulative forces to come in and channel all that anger into the direction they want to channel it into. And so we're only looking at the beginning. This is going to get a lot worse. Yeah.
Maybe pull this back. Donovan, you want to hop in? Just some commentary on what you're saying.
Yeah. Listen, with regards to the LA riots, I'm old enough to remember the LA riots back in '91. I think I was living in Hawaii at the time, and I think I was 1977 minus
92.
I was 92. Yeah. So I was a teenager during that time, and that was absolutely crazy. That was the Rodney King beating. We were all shocked and appalled and all this other kind of stuff. And the thing is that, and you guys know good and damn well that I'm not Mr. Social Justice Warrior. I'm not Mr. Pro Whack out there. But as a black man, I guess I have to say that I have been on the receiving end, not of police brutality, but of racial bias. I was actually charged with identity theft back in 2000 from an old roommate who told police that I had stolen his identity. He tried to buy a boat. He had his credit was fucked up because of a cable bill that he hadn't paid. I was his roommate at that time. And so what this guy did, what Aaron did, is he told the cops, oh, this guy, Donovan Sharp, we were never roommates. He was my next door neighbor. And so they charged me with identity theft. So we get to court and I tell my attorney, I'm like, dude, we were roommates. He's like, you have proof of this? Yeah, I got the fucking lease. I showed him the lease. Charges dropped. I should never have been charged in the first place, because had the police officers or the detectives done just a little bit of detective work, I would never have been charged. I then tried to file suit against the Cary, North Carolina Police Department for placing a false arrest. I wanted to charge Aaron with a false police report. They got back with me 2 weeks later. They said, well, we did an investigation and there's not enough to charge. Okay. I mean, I was pissed, but what could I do?
Well, hang on though. What is the evidence that this is racially motivated? Cops do stupid shit all the time. I've been falsely accused of domestic violence and almost went to jail, man.
Well,
I mean,
I think that Donovan Sharp has a valid grievance there. I think when it comes to that, because the point is that the police were looking for excuses to arrest, and had they actually done their investigation and actually asked Donovan for his lease, this would have never gone to a district attorney. I think that's where he's getting. And I agree with what you're saying, Anthony. But I will say this: as a Latino man who does have brown skin, I have been racially discriminated against. But let me explain this. It's only happened in left-wing strongholds. I've been through the South. I've been to North Carolina, been to South Carolina, been to Alabama, been to all those places. You know what? Everybody's rolled out the red carpet for me, and they have treated me based on the character and my attitude, not on the color of my skin. The only time that I've been pulled over driving while brown when I was younger, but it was only in left-wing strongholds. It was never in the South. It was never in the places that they tell you that the racism is going to happen. And you see this today. You see these left-wing idiots. They're not only racist against African Americans and brown people, but they're racist against white people too. It's like they hate everybody. It's crazy.
I'll tell you this, guys. I'll tell you this. Anthony asked a good question. How do I know it was racially motivated? I don't think it was racially motivated, but I definitely think that race was an issue. Aaron Jones was a white man. I am a black man.
Okay.
I guess I didn't say that last time.
Yeah.
Had I been Aaron and Aaron had been Donovan, they probably would have done. Listen, I'm not there. I don't know. But, and again, this was in the American South. And I guess DDJ had a different experience than I've had. I've had terrible experiences in the Deep South. This is why I will never live east of the Mississippi and south of the Mason-Dixon line for as long as I live. That's why when I got the hell out of Dodge, I moved as far west as I possibly could to fucking Las Vegas, because they're not after dudes like me at that point. No, they're after illegals down there, right? I'm driving. I drove a nice Audi A5. I'm driving all crazy. Never got pulled over, not once. I actually got pulled over in Reno. But that's what I wanted to say about the LA riots. As far as this George Floyd situation, this isn't really my lane. What happened to George Floyd was wrong. That's how it is. But I will say this. I'm definitely for peaceful protest. Something needed to be said, something needed to be done. Rioting is complete, dude, that is complete 100% bullshit. It should not be happening, and I'm going to tell you why. The reason why, one of the main problems with the African-American community is that it is a matriarchy. Most African-American people in America are raised by women, and women are a slave to their emotions. However, if the African-American community were a patriarchy, we would be raised as young men and boys to be slow to anger, be calculating, use logic, use reason, use rationale. So when something like, listen, I watched the George Floyd tape. I was fucking angry. And you guys know me. I've got a quick trigger temper anyway. And guess what? A lot of the reason why I have a quick trigger temper is because I was raised mostly by my single-ish slut of a mother. Okay. Jesus. That's one of the this is one of the reasons why I'm quick to anger, because my mom is a woman. She's quick to anger, and I'm, sort of working through those issues now.
Donovan, I got to say too, you were the first guy I've ever heard in my life say that black women are born pregnant. I remember when you said that on the Red Man group, I was like, oh, yeah, what the fuck? What?
Well, listen, I say that in jest, but I said that to drive home a higher point, which is that we as African-American people, we are extremely fertile. This is why a lot of the big families are mostly in African-American communities. But when it comes to just the way people are, because African-Americans are raised mostly by women, we are very quick to anger. Okay, listen, we all saw the George Floyd thing. we were pissed. I mean, and again, not only that situation back in Cary, North Carolina, I've been pulled over for no reason. I've had my hands on the hood of cars. I've had my day ruined for 20 minutes. Oh yeah, we're going to check this and that and the other. Everything checks up. Sorry, sir. I hope you have a good drive home, just because I'm a young black male driving a really nice car. That's happened to me. But the reason why we're so quick to anger is because the black community is a matriarchy. If the black community were a patriarchy, I can promise you a lot of this rioting probably wouldn't really be going on, because most African Americans would use logic and reason instead of going out and burning shit down. So while I definitely agree with the officers involved being charged, I am staunchly diametrically opposed to throwing Molotov fucking cocktails or beer bottles full of alcohol and fire. Don't burn it down.
It's black communities getting burned down too, man. It's fucking.
I mean, like, how
wild.
stupid is that? Like, how stupid is that? It just doesn't make any sense.
By the way, I pulled up this tweet. This is a black guy yesterday I found on Twitter. This went pretty viral. He's calling for patriarchy because someone said, we got to unlearn patriarchy in the black community, which is, like you're saying, it's bullshit.
There you go.
You need more patriarchy, a lot more.
Yes.
I think every race does. Every race benefits from it, because men and women, the masculinity and femininity, the balance and the interaction of that's universal. Right. And so I agree with you. Yeah.
Well, I think Noah said it really well earlier when he said that, strong men have strong families. And, I think that Zach has said that many times on other podcasts as well, is that, when you have strong men in your family.
But before you go off on a rant, let me pull in Evolve Phil real quick. I'll pull in Bruno after this too. Evolve Phil, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, strong men lead strong families, and if these, I guarantee you that the majority of the actual rioters, not the protesters, who are men, are from single parent households, single mother households.
Yep. That's why I titled the show this side. I look at this stuff going on. I want to get Phil's take on this next, but this to me screams from every race: the blacks, the whites, the Hispanics and stuff rioting. At least 50%, 60% of these men and women, these adult children, basically, they were raised without a father. There's no way. Hunter was talking about that earlier in the show. He's talking to fathers now, calling them up. And the rioters, the people who are really unhinged, are these daughters that weren't raised by their father, or their father was removed from the home through divorce, rape, child custody bullshit, all these feminist shenanigans in the family court. Phil, do you want to give your take on what's going on from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm down here in Texas, so it's a little bit milder compared to what's going on everywhere else. But I would say that it's disgusting to actually see it happening. And it's unfortunate what happened to the gentleman. The police acted out of line on that deal, and man died. But how many people die on a day?
The guy that fell over and cracked his head open?
I don't know, but no, I think that guy's alive.
No, I'm talking about George, the gentleman.
George. Okay. All right. I got you.
Yeah. So, and obviously, there's always been some sort of strife between black and white, like Donovan, I've had my fair share of issues with the police. And I will tell you this, I just stay my ass at home. When the sun goes down, I'm at home. Because when you're out, you run a risk of getting caught up, whether you're at the bar. You can go anywhere at any time and have issues. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. I think really what's happening now is this outrage of, we live in an outraged society, right? And it does go back to leaderless homes, no fathers in the home, nobody educating these people on, hey, how to behave anymore. So these kids are basically raised on what? Television, social media, and it's the next big thing.
Kardashians.
Yeah, exactly. So you're seeing this, you're seeing this whole thing play out, and you're seeing your country be just completely gutted and ripped apart, and they're destroying their own community. That's the tragedy about it. So you look at this thing and you go, okay, so what is the whole message behind this right here?
Yeah,
what's that?
What's the end game, right?
Yeah. What's the message behind it? What is the purpose of you destroying and pillaging and robbing and assaulting all these people? It doesn't accomplish anything, right?
A lot of it too is some of it's in the streets, some of it's major retailers like Target and AutoZone, but a lot of it's small businesses, man. It's local people, black, white, Asian, Korean, Hispanic, whatever. They own fucking shoe store or some shit, and that shit's burned to the ground now.
And that's that is the absolute tragedy, because the stupid virus crap that came through and wiped out and decimated small business in these communities now, what's left has been decimated by this crap.
Yep.
So you have someone's hopes and dreams really of trying to make a successful life for themselves completely wiped off the friggin' map because somebody's pissed off and outraged. I think what happened to the man is horrible. They shouldn't have done that to him, right? But that stuff happens to white people just like it happens to black people.
Yeah, I would say in general, yeah, like that old guy that just got his head, that 75-year-old hippie, ran up to riot police.
Well,
and he got fucking.
Listen, that's very interesting. That's very interesting what Phil just said. And listen, and I'm going to go on record saying this. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being a racist. If you want to be racist, cool. If you want to call black people niggers, cool. If you want to call white people crackers, cool. That doesn't mean I got to swim with you. But people, listen, I'm making a greater point, and I say this in sort of jest. Racist people are deplorable. We get it. But guess what? Their right to be racist is protected under the First Amendment. Right?
Yeah, politically, I think everyone should support it. If you're a racist piece of shit, good for you. I guess.
I get it. I totally get it. But a lot of times, but what's happening now is that you are having people sort of talk about this and they do this under the shroud of I'm not racist, but. So, for example, I'll take one example and I'll bring it to the example that I'm going to give you. Anytime black women, for example, talk about, well, I don't know why black men date white girls. There are more white girls on welfare than black women. That's very true. But the reason for that is because there are far more white women. Percentage wise, there are far, like if we're talking percentages, yes, black single mothers lead the league in welfare percentage. Well, the same goes with this whole sort of police thing. There are black men that have problems with the cops, and there are white men that have problems with the cops. But here's the difference. And guess what? I would even go as far as to say, I don't even have the statistics on this, but more white people have been shot and killed by the police than black people. But here's where the percentages are wrong. The percentage of white people that get shot and killed by police officers pales in comparison in terms of their black counterparts. I'll put it to you this way. We as black men, we make up, I think, 6 to 7% of the entire population. And I'm not Jesse Jackson. I'm not Al Sharpton. I'm not that guy, but facts are facts. We as black men, we live in a different America. Police treat us differently. There is no doubt about it. We see it all the time, every day. I'm not going to rattle off the names because I don't want to be that guy. 6 to 7% of people in this country are African American men, yet 85% of prisoners are African American men. So clearly there is a racial bias in the justice system, in the streets, and all that stuff.
Well, hang on a second, Donovan. Correlation is not causation, so it's easy to jump to conclusions with that. And there is something there for sure. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. It's drawing conclusions from numbers. It's dangerous. There's a huge article that just came on the Wall Street Journal, The Myth of Systemic Police Racism. And they're saying there's no evidence of that stuff. And this has been super controversial around, obviously.
No, I get it. I totally get it. But here's the thing. I shouldn't have even said the statistic. Most people in prison are black men. That's just all there is to it. Most people in prison are black men, and it is a large disparity. I've been to jail before. Guess what? When I go to jail, nothing but niggas, right? That doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be there. But again,
well, a reason for that could be single motherhood.
No,
it could be single motherhood, which hit the black community first, which has an effect.
Agree. Listen, it is single motherhood, but to deny that there is I'm not even going to say motivated by racism, but I'm not going to use statistics. Black men in particular, the odds are not stacked against us. I don't know what the odds are. I don't know what the percentages are, but all you have to do is live life. And you see that the percentages are skewed heavily against us. And I'm sure there are other people that could come out with facts or statistics, but the facts are the facts. Most of the prison population is black men. As far as police brutality, a much higher percentage of black men get brutalized by the police. But I will say this. What we have to do as black men is we can't react this way. If an officer comes up to you and says, and I did this when I was in Reno, I got stopped because I was driving. I wasn't even driving that fast. I was doing 30 and a 35. I had a European license plate on my car. Reno cop passes by me, turns on the headlights and comes right after me. I'm like, oh my God. I tell my friend Troy, I said, don't make any sudden movements. Don't, yes, sir, no, sir, et cetera, et cetera. So when the cop comes to the door, I roll down my window, I put my hands on the dash. He's like, license and registration, please. I said, officer, I'm going to reach into my back pocket to grab my license. My friend Troy in the passenger seat, who has both hands up, he's going to get my registration in my glove box. He did that. The officer goes back. He comes back after 20 minutes. He says, all right. I said, well, hold on. What did you pull me over for? He said, improper equipment. I said, what improper equipment? He said, your license plate. Now, in the state of Nevada, you're supposed to have a license plate on the front and the back, right?
Oh, yeah, one of those.
Right. Was I breaking the law? Absolutely. But as we're sitting there, people are driving by with different kinds of license plates. That to me, and in my mind, that has to be I don't know, maybe the guy had a bad day. Maybe his wife cheated on him with a nigga. I don't know. But I do know this. Not to say that if I were white, he wouldn't have pulled me over, but it is far less likely that if I were white, and my other friend was white, he would not have pulled me over. If Troy had been a white girl, he damn sure would have pulled my ass over. That's all I'm saying. There is a clear racial bias.
Well, I can say I want to make one comment related to this. The average person sucks at interacting with police of every race. Most people don't do what you did. They're not clear. They don't say yes sir, no sir, like shit like that. They don't make slow movements. They move fast. You see this all the time. These people that get tasered and shit on video.
Yeah.
It's because you're fucking jumpy. You're a fucking idiot. This guy deals with legit scum every day. People who do commit serious crimes and violence, and they don't want to get killed because they have to do that 5 days a week for the rest of their life till they fucking retire.
Absolutely.
So cops deal all around the country with serious shit, and you have to be like when I got falsely accused of domestic violence, the woman ended up going to jail that night.
Really?
And it was super tense because I didn't know, and the cops couldn't figure out what they wanted to do. And in Florida, they have to bring someone to jail. It's the law. They made it in the 90s or something like that.
Shit, dude. Okay, all right.
So I was like, fuck. I'm a man. I'm gonna get fucked. So what did I do though? I talked very slow. I was very clear. I was very careful in what I said. I knew anything I said could be used against me as a man. I knew that independent, white, black, or Hispanic, fuck it. I'm a man, and a woman accused me of something falsely, maliciously, and I was like, I could fucking go to jail just based because I'm a man, just because I had a dick.
With a dick and balls, yeah.
But I believe the reason I ended up justice was served. She ended up being arrested and was screaming. It was unreal. They even asked me if she was mentally ill. I was like, I don't think so, but
you should have said
whatever. Probably. Yeah, probably. But what the reason I think I navigated myself out of it, and it was tense, man. I was like, fuck. I was very slow in everything I did, very respectful, eye contact, slow stuff. And that I think that's at the end of the day, I think why they pushed it in my direction. And it was a nail biter, man. It took probably like fucking
right back. This goes right back to Phil and Noah's points.
Yeah.
And the reason why black men get all stupid and crazy when they get pulled over by the cops, again, this goes back to the matriarchy. You can't react that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just can't do that. But again, there is a racial bias. If you're a white man and you're making all sorts of sudden movements, could you get shot by the cops? Sure, you could. But if you're a black man making sudden movements, you're more likely to get shot by the cops. And here's another reason why. We as black men, when cops pull us over, when they deal with us, they think of black boys as adults a lot quicker than they do all of our... Dude, when I was 14, 15 years old, cops looked at me as a man. They didn't look at me as a 13, 14-year-old kid just trying to make his way through high school. That's not the way they see it. So there are many factors involved, but I agree with you, Anthony. You got to know how to act, man. You can't be acting all crazy. These are the cops. Is he racist? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. You have to act right. A lot of people in the black community made fun of an episode I did way back, episode like 77. I'm on episode number 623 now. I talked about the fact that when I lived in North Carolina, before I moved my car, I made sure my brake lights were all of them were working. I made sure none of my tires were flat, just so that a cop didn't have a reason to pull me over. Dude, more often than not, oh yeah, your tags are out of date or your headlight is out, and then they search you and then all that other stuff happens. You have to take care. You got to take care of you because nobody's going to take care of you but you. But that's right. That's my point.
Yeah, I grew up in Canada. And
hang on, Noah, but before we get some more comments from him, I want to pull in Bruno. He's been waiting. George Bruno, welcome to the show.
Shit, man.
Yeah. George, I want to get your take, but Noah, do you want to comment first? Finish up your thoughts.
Yeah, I grew up in Canada, and about half my church was black. So when we would go to somewhere,
black people in Canada,
yeah, we all lived in my area.
All 6 of them. Right?
It was a small church.
Okay, all right.
all the black people that were in my church were upper middle class. They all had a father, except for one, and they were all from the Caribbean, except for one who was from the U.S. and he had no dad. So it really followed a pattern. But they had a really hard time interacting with police, and I would often be driving with them, and I had to do the interaction with the police officer. We're driving along, and I had no idea of race or anything at the time. I didn't care. I was in my early teens, and cops kept pulling us over constantly. We couldn't go anywhere. And I asked the officer, like, why are you pulling us over? And he's like, well, I see like one young white guy in a car full of black guys. And I'm like, you're being kidnapped.
Told you that?
Oh my
He
God.
asked me, are you being kidnapped? Do you
Canadians are so weird, man.
I'm like, yeah, these are my church friends. Like, we're going to a church football game, you know? And they seriously asked me if I was being kidnapped. We got pulled over twice that day.
Hey, about there. What are you doing there, son?
Hey, listen, I'm waiting for a cop. Listen, I'm waiting for a cop to fuck up on camera. You're racially discriminating against me. No, now calm down. All right. I'm not racist. I love niggers. I talked to 3 niggers maybe 2-3 weeks ago. 3 of my friends are niggers. I'm just waiting for them to straight up do that. I can't believe that happened to you. Well, you are a white guy.
Part of the problem was exactly what you said, Donovan. We drive by a cop, and I'm like, I stand straighter. I look right at the cop. I'm like interact with him. They all slink down in their seat like they just are getting away from a bank robbery.
Right. And the reason they do that is because they understand that white people and black people are treated very differently by cops in a lot of cases.
Well, I said to them, like, you guys are acting like you got a kilo of cocaine in the trunk. Of course he's going to pull us over.
Well, I'd like to make it.
I taught them. I said, do exactly what I'm doing. When you see the cops, look at them and nod to them. Sit up.
Hang on, Noah, DJ.
And it really helped a lot.
Let's pause on this. The race stuff is interesting, but I really wanted to focus the show on the fatherlessness and single motherhood and stuff. Also, though,
the niggers anymore.
I mean, that's your thing, dude. But I want to talk to George here and get George's comment on what do you see going on with this stuff, George? We talked last Sunday a little bit about in the early iterations of it. That was Sunday. I mean, a lot's happened since then. And you've been in Philadelphia with this shit going on. I mean, Philadelphia has been hit hard by this stuff, man. It's been wild.
God, yeah.
Are you close by too to that, Donovan? I know you used to live up there, right?
Oh yeah.
I've seen that. It's been brutal, man. Looking at the streets, it was fucking anarchy out there, man.
Crazy, man.
George,
where'd he go?
Yeah, I don't know if his audio.
Yeah, Donovan and we have row seat.
George, you're cutting in and out. Can anybody hear George? Yeah.
No, I can't hear him. Can anybody else hear him?
I think his internet's fucked. George, if you could,
I said Donovan and
I think I might have to
tell him to get on the 5G, but then he'll get coronavirus.
Yeah, your 5G cancer is cutting out.
I'm gonna log.
Oh man,
log out and log back in.
Yeah, log back in, or do it on a computer.
Yeah. All right. So DDJ, Noah, do you guys want to get back into it?
I just wanted to say one small thing. Noah, you said this is in Canada. Yeah. So you lived in Canuckistan, a left-wing shithole. And you'll notice that, again, to underscore my point earlier, and obviously my experience is a little bit better and different than Donovan's, of course. But again, it's the left is likely to be more, in my view anyway, my personal experience, my anecdotal experience is more likely to be racist than the right, at least in my personal experience. And that's all I wanted to say.
Cool.
Yeah. I have a comment here real quick too. I don't know if Donovan has any thoughts on this. It was the first time I'd heard of it. It was kind of a wake-up call years ago. So one of my old employees for 21, he moved to Florida he grew up near Baltimore, I guess. And when him and his parents moved to Tampa, and his sister, they were shocked at the difference. So I grew up in Florida my whole life. So my experience with black culture and black people, I grew up, went to school with everybody. A lot of people were black.
Yeah, you were comfortable around it.
Yeah, completely. It was, we had a lot of my friends are growing up are black. One of my best friends for 15 years now is black. His mother is Jamaican, his father's Italian. So it's a really interesting mix, actually. So he's a mix.
Odd, though.
But yeah, his parents are odd. It's a very interesting combo. His dad's like Tony Soprano and his mom is like Jamaican woman. It's interesting. But regardless, my experience of black culture and community growing up was in Florida, and that was just my predominant understanding of black people. And we got along great. We played football. These were my teammates. These were my friends. We lifted weights together. There was, I would say, close to zero racial tension at school growing up like this. In fact, the only racial tension I would see would be occasionally the American blacks would not get along with the Caribbean blacks. Sometimes they would get in like fights and stuff. What are the Haitians and stuff.
Huh? How about that?
But beyond that, there was like no there was a couple Asians, white people, black people, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans. We got along really well. But my friend, my old employee, he came from Baltimore, and he was shocked at Florida blacks. Like, he just couldn't understand it. Everybody, I mean, this was the first. I was like, what are you talking about? They're just black people. And he's like, dude, black people in Florida are really, really nice, and they get along. Like, I guess he was shocked at the racial integration or lack of tension that you would see in Florida. Eventually they got used to it, but he's like, dude, in Baltimore, it's a lot different.
Oh yeah.
So I never lived up there, but that part, there's more urban centers and stuff, but at least in Florida, man, like stuff like that, you just don't, it's a lot more rare anyway. I think like DDJ is saying, I guess been my experience. Florida's, the South, but it's not like, most of it's not super,
man. I would say that you're 100% right, Anthony. I think northern Florida is very close to the American deep South. Anything from maybe Orlando down, it's kind of like another country. It's just different there. It really is. It really is.
Yeah,
influence all that.
Yeah, it's salty. I call myself salty redneck, and grew up at the beach and shit. Alligators, sharks, manatees, like, and a lot of Florida's like that. The East Coast down south is different. Like Miami, that's like fucking. Oh, that's not even like America.
Yeah, that's.
But Central Florida, Southwest Florida, even the Keys are a whole special place of fucking crazy assholes.
Jesus Christ. Yes.
The Conch people. Yeah, but no, did you have more commentary? I just wanted to get that in. That was, I thought, kind of useful to this. No, you're there.
Yeah, the big part of the problem is that even when people have the father, they're not teaching them things. So the story I was mentioning before, their dads hadn't taught them how to interact with cops. I know how to interact with a police officer because my dad taught me that. When we would pass an officer, my dad would say, nod to him and smile or wave to him. I do that with my son. I'm like, we pass the police, wave to them. And, they'll come in the opposite direction from us. They'll sometimes honk at my son because they see him waving. And it's not about, making a big deal of the police. It's about teaching your children not to be afraid of the police. If you act like you're afraid, you have to understand that the people who become police officers come from a population that has natural predatory instincts, and they channel those towards going after other predators in society. But if you act like prey, if you act like you're afraid, if you act like you expect a violent confrontation with them, that does something in the back of their head that sets them off, and immediately they don't trust you. Now you're coming from a position of a lack of trust. And that happens often enough. They end up to the point where, for a lot of police officers, they feel like they're in a war zone. And so we need to teach our sons how to interact with law enforcement, how to interact in such a way that they'll be safe, and so that they don't set off other authority figures. And I guarantee you, after all of these riots, it's going to be even worse, because now police are going to be feeling even more disrespected and even more in danger and even more under threat. And man, you want to keep your kids safe? Teach them how to interact with police. Teach them how to even signal in the way that they're dressing that they're not a criminal. If you talk to a police officer, what sets you off? What hands in the pockets? I caught a pickpocketer a few years ago that I thought he grabbed my friend's wallet. He wasn't able to actually get it. And I caught him. Immediately, the guy sticks his hands in his pockets. I just about decked him because I thought he was going for a knife.
Yeah.
Officers are like that. They don't even think. They just react.
They're always watching. Anybody who's really into self-defense, they watch your hands. And cops are trained to watch your hands. Watch the hands. Watch the hands. Everything comes from the hands.
One last comment here before we pivot, because I know that it's actually getting a little stale. Because I don't really like talking about race. But you're right. Fathers should teach their sons how to interact with cops. There is a difference in the Black community. The conversations that my parents had with me are very different from the conversations that parents or sons of other races of children have. What my parents told me, they told me, Donovan, when you interact with cops, you need to understand that you are not seen as a child. You are seen as an adult. Like, that's how this goes. So, and I think that's an important conversation for people to be having. And I'll tell you what, a lot of these conversations are beginning to be had because we see what's going on. So it's and I'm not discounting what you say, Noah, but sometimes in a lot of cases, no matter how you interact with the cops as a black man, you run into the wrong one, bad things can happen. That's why now, if let's just say there was a black man with a gun shooting around, a white cop shoots him in the, well, not in the temple, but they're taught to shoot him in center body mass. There's not going to be any riots or because the cop was in imminent danger. The reason why people are protesting, and we don't know what happened before Rodney King got the crap beat out of him, but nothing justifies what happened to him. We don't know how George Floyd acted before that cop choked him out with his knee. Not to say that it wasn't wrong, but that can sometimes be a factor. All of that said, sometimes a black man can do everything right and still get the shaft. To bring it back around to my Reno story, do you want to know what happened to me? The cop said to me, he said, okay, I'm going to give you a choice. I can either impound your car or I can write you a ticket. He was going to get his pound of flesh. That's what that was. I did everything right. Yes, sir. No, sir. I'm going to reach for this. All of that stuff. Went back, wasted 20 minutes of my day that I'm never going to get back. He comes back and says, all right, improper equipment. Do you want to get the car impounded or do you want a court date? I was like, fuck it. Just impound the car. I'll go down there and get it. So guess what? $180 later, I'm $180 lighter in the wallet because of improper equipment. Again, while people are steady driving by me with improper equipment. So most of the time, if you do things right, the interactions can be fine. But you have to understand that black people, we live in a different America. I at least will acknowledge that.
Well, let's bring Bruno in here. He's back on the show. I think he's got here he is. Bruno.
Oh, there he goes.
Welcome back.
Good morning. Hi there.
You're clear now. Everything's looking smooth.
Yes,
How you
sir.
doing?
Excellent. Excellent. Tell me what you want me to comment on. You guys
Right,
were kind of going in and out.
Yeah, so, we talked last Sunday. We did a special live stream, me and DDJ. But since then, there's just been a lot happening in America. Let's focus on America rather than the rest of the world, which is now spread there too.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the continuing riots and everything going on, particularly in Philadelphia, where you've been nearby a lot of shit? I mean, Philadelphia is, I think, one of the worst spots where this is hit, my understanding.
Yeah. My comment earlier that I think I've broken up was that Donovan and I both have a front row seat to all the shit show that's happening.
Yeah.
And it's, we're both very close to it logistically. I work in a prison. My partner in the prison is a 53-year-old black woman. She literally called me last week crying. I said, what's the matter? She says, they destroyed my neighborhood.
Damn, dude.
I said, talk to me. And this is a married woman. She says, George, my family won't listen to me, and you're the only person I can talk to. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And that only has come about because I've been a listening ear and I'm a trustworthy person with her. And she says, George, I'm a huge fan. She's one of my biggest fans of my channel and such. She agrees with my message. And I'm not virtue signaling to anyone right now. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, some of my best friends are black or whatever, Some people have said that to me, like,
Right.
I said that on
the reason for that, though, is that white people are getting, basically labeled as like indefinitely, permanently, inherently racist at this point.
Because they're white. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's really fuck. And it's, the woke SJW feminist crowd, feminists. I mean, look at the feminists when they attacked us. They accused 22Con of being a racist convention, which was crazy. We had, I'm part Jew, AJ is part Jew, AJ is part Hispanic. We had 3 black speakers, Elliot, Donovan, Steve.
Right.
Now we have Coach Greg Adams as well. I mean, it's the racist accusations were delusional by the feminists, but they did it anyway. And it just because, I guess, because I'm white and Molly knew or something, like it's fucking stupid. Yeah, it's just some common. Yeah, so it's. I think that's why the white people are getting angry now though, because they're not, particularly millennials. Man, I grew up in the '90s. It's not okay to be a racist. Like this was very, at least in Florida, like it's not okay. Yeah. And for in any direction, and it's just to see it now. I think as millennials are particularly getting pissed off, man, because like they're not racist. They know they're not racist, and they're tired of being called racist.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that would get old.
Yeah. Long story short, she says to me, George, I'm your biggest fan, and you have a lot of influence on your channel. She says, you men need to step up and father this nation. And I actually did a broadcast about that. She says, you need to father this nation. And I was like blown away. And that and a couple other instances made me think that all of this is the result of fatherlessness.
Yep.
Or
that's a primary factor, I think.
Yeah, female intensive parenting. A woman cannot teach a man how to be a man. She can only teach a woman how to be a woman. But if that woman is radical and hardcore, and I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the like purple hair feminists and even like the executive feminists, which are just a pain in the ass. They're just like fucking sirens. They're just a waste. But I will say this, that struck me. And I've tossed and turned for about 5 nights now with that on my mind, fathering the nation. And I took it a step further and I did a study of husbanding the nation. You might have seen that on my channel, where animal husbandry is about breeding, economizing, building, marketing, communications. Colleges used to have degree programs in animal husbandry. So I looked that up. It's from the Nordic, husband is from the Nordic word hus, which means house, bandi, which means dweller or sower. So the original husband is a farmer. Think about what farmers do. It's deep. They do everything, okay? They make sure that the land is fertile. They make sure that the breeding of livestock is on point. They make sure that crops are growing properly. So with a lack of fathering, you end up with a lack of husband and husbandry. And that's not what is going on today. We're not fathering and husbanding the nation.
Well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, George. I think this is why I call the Manosphere a positive movement for men, boys, and fathers. But the end result is basically like you're saying. It's the Manosphere, and look at what everyone here does with your channels and your communities and your everything that you guys do, the content you create and the communication you have with your audience. You're teaching masculinity, you're teaching manhood, you're teaching in some cases fatherhood, literally and explicitly, and family and parenting and stuff. But also how to, from Donovan, how to train your girl up. I think he has a course on that. Donovan has a course on that, like how to train.
How to build a quality on the ground up.
Exactly. And Hunter Drew, exactly. So you have that. Hunter Drew does, how to make your wife into your personal slut or something. He's famous for that. I mean, there's all kinds of different, these are like, plays on words and they're all that, but they're really good. I mean, men lead relationships, they lead families, they lead the children, and that means fathering, and that means mentorship, and that means husbanding, like you're saying. And I think that's what the Manosphere is doing, though. It's doing it at a scale that is absolutely necessary and never before seen. And you're seeing that across, all these different demographics now, all the races, fathers, non-fathers, single guys, bachelors, like all these different religions are involved in the Manosphere. Every religion you can name is involved in the Manosphere, whether it's something atheist like objectivism or obviously Christianity, all the denominations, the Jews. There's even all these Muslims in the Manosphere. I mean, it's super diverse, and even in real life, we get along super well at the conventions.
Yeah.
Which you don't see, I think if anything, the Manosphere is a model for what America should be looking at for different religions, different races, different demographics getting along. Even generations. We have, boomers, we have Gen Xers, we have millennials. We even have a couple of Gen Z guys attend the conventions, and we all get along really well because we have common values and common goals, I think, and including disagreements that we hash out.
About a year ago, you made the change. You started saying men, boys, and fathers.
Yep.
I think it was about a year ago.
Yep.
And that was a pivot point for the 21 convention as a whole.
Yeah.
And we all felt super included. It wasn't about going out and getting laid, because who can't do that? Seriously.
Well, a lot of guys suck, actually.
I know, because they're getting information from the wrong people. That's why. They're getting data from the wrong people.
Donovan's gonna hop in a few minutes on his iPad, I think. But keep going.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think, like I was telling someone the other day, I was thinking about Ed Lattimore, Elliot, Alan Roger Curry, Donovan. Who else?
Black speakers from the convention? Steve
Correct.
Williams. Yeah.
Steve Williams. Never for one fucking second do I ever refer to them as my black friends.
Yeah.
Steve Williams and I, did Friday nights together for a while there.
Mhm.
And he's my friend. He's not my black friend. Let's make that fucking perfectly clear. I don't describe these guys as my black friends. They're my friends.
Well, I
Period.
would. Yeah, it's generally not important, and it's not the way you bonded and built a friendship. I mean, my friend from childhood, he's half black, half Jamaican, half Italian. I don't typically refer to him as my black friend either, because that wasn't how the relationship formed in the friendship. We just met together in school. We met on the school bus and just became friends ever since.
But you've been almost pushed to the point where you have to say that, and I have to say that, just to show the world, look, I'm not surrounded by men in white fucking hoods.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, even as a young bachelor, I'm an equal opportunity lover. I bang black girls, so I love it. I prefer white women the most, and then Colombian women are my favorite as well. But I bang some really hot black girls. It's fucking awesome. And I'll keep banging them too.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, when
uh,
the U.S. was founded, it was founded in a time when it was very much a patriarchy. Men ran the houses, men ran the government. Originally men were the only ones that could vote. It was very much a patriarchy, and it was very much a masculine society. And how they did their revolution compared to how now a very effeminate group on the left is trying to do their revolution with pure chaos and destruction. And to a large extent, the first U.S. Civil War, which is I like how you refer to that, Anthony. The first American Civil War, where the country was founded, was basically a very long camping trip with occasional shooting matches in between. There was a lot of very careful application of force. There was attempt, especially by the revolutionaries, they were trying not to destroy the country they lived in. They wanted to preserve it, and they wanted to preserve it as a free country. And we see in the French Revolution what happens when you have a country that had become very effeminate. Very many of the men, the fathers, had been killed in the previous wars that they'd gone through, and you had generations growing up without masculine influence, and you had a very out of control, emotionally liberated, emotionally wild and crazy population, and they destroyed themselves. So France never recovered their status post-revolution. Even with Napoleon, they weren't able to really recover it. It was a blip, so to speak. And the U.S. right now is facing a French-style civil war, not an American-style civil war. I don't think that will work. I don't think it's possible to work in the United States, because there are still many men and masculinity in the U.S. It's just that most of the men in the U.S., they're average middle-class guys. They just want to work. They want to go home to their wife and kids and have a beer with their friends. They don't care about politics. They don't care what's happening in the city. That's their problems. And now it's starting to filter out of the cities and into the suburbs.
Yep.
And now these middle-class guys, the guys that built America and can destroy it whenever they want to because they know how it was built, now those guys are going to feel threatened.
They do. I think that's really what this whole, we call it the Fatherless Rebellion on this episode. I think that's what it's done, is it's woken up a lot of America. A lot of people now are getting more politically aware, agitated. They're concerned. I mean, there was that big study that came out. Not study. It was a poll they took, a snap poll, and it showed more than half of America supported not only the National Guard intervening in these riots, but the active duty military. Which the last time I think that was done was 1992 with LA riots. The president George H.W. sent in the Marines and shit on top of the National Guard and law enforcement and all that was already there, which is really serious. I mean, that's you have to, I think, invoke the Insurrection Act to even do that as president. Otherwise, it's illegal. So it's it's serious shit. But people are pissed off, man, and they're worried. And I think they have the right to be worried. We've never seen mass riots like this this scale. Certainly not in my lifetime. Maybe since the 60s, I guess there was some stuff like this. But
if you think the riots are bad, wait till you see the counter-revolution. That's going to be lit.
Yeah.
George, I want to change the topic a little bit, but you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I want to say that they want us to fight. There's people that are going, yeah, we did it. That's what's happening. We don't like fighting other people. I don't like fighting a black man. I don't want that. I don't want to be at enmity with the black race.
Yeah, they want to divide and conquer.
I honestly, now the conspiracy theorist, the fringe dweller in me, literally believes that there are oligarchs, there are people in power that are obviously stoking these fires, and we are pawns on the chessboard. And what we need to do as black men and white men, black fathers and white fathers, black husbands and white husbands, we need to say, no, we're not doing this anymore. And what's happened is the only people that are responding to this are feminized white men, radical feminists, and black men raised by their mothers. You don't see men who've been properly fathered. You don't see this because men who've been properly fathered, not mothered, fathered, have respect. Your father was the one, your mother, in my day, it was wait till your father gets home.
Oh,
if you did something wrong,
wait
till your father gets home.
Absolutely.
There was, I'll never forget. I mean, your neighbor, if you threw a rock and broke out a neighbor's window, your neighbor could take you over to your father, and your father would say, thank you for bringing him here. He wouldn't get offended.
Yeah.
All right. Your father wouldn't get, he'd say, you know, I wouldn't blame you if you kicked his ass. Now you're going to pay for his window. You're going to tell him you're sorry right now. And that's the kind of life that I grew up in.
If I can comment
That's not
on this,
happening now.
I have a quick theory that maybe you guys will agree or have some thoughts on it. But my theory for a little while has been that as a child, you definitely need a mother and father, as well as extended family, like DDJ is saying. And personally, I'm trying to do the best I can with my little new nephew, and I have another nephew coming too now to do that. And I love it being an uncle. It's really, I don't want to get too into it, but it's been amazing to become an uncle. But my theory with parenting and being a child is that as a child, your same-sex parent is your primary role model. Secondary role model is the opposite sex. So his son needs a mother, but he needs a father even more. A daughter needs a father, but I think she needs a mother even more, because they need to imprint off the same sex, like how they behave as adults, as well as observe a healthy relationship, ideally, right, between a mother and father that are together and not divorced. So that's just a quick theory I have, but and I haven't looked into it too much, but to me, it makes a lot of sense.
It's not a theory, Anthony. I watch a ton of animal videos that kind of give me a little peace. And, you know, there's that YouTube channel called The Dodo, and it's just funny animal stories. How a pit bull became friends with a chicken or something, you know, something like that. But there are video after video of how this duck thinks I'm its parent, or this chipmunk thinks that this pit bull is its mother. You know why? It's called imprinting. Imprinting. And what is around a young, newly birthed animal for like the first even 2 weeks of its life? As soon as it's hatched from an egg or birthed from the body of the female animal, whatever it is around during the first 2 to 3 weeks of its life considers it its parent. That's why there are farmers who are there to, when a goose lays a bunch of eggs and is around when those little geese, the goslings, are hatched, they will follow that farmer around. And we've seen videos of this. It's hilarious. But imprinting is real. Without a father, who is doing the imprinting?
Yep. They're going to get nothing, or they're going to get it from culture, and culture is shit. It's all feminist, you know, anti-male garbage for sons and young boys. It sucks, man. Yeah, and in some ways, you know, as the Manosphere, I think all of us kind of saw this coming, and it's not, you know, for a lot of America, it's a shock, but for the whole Manosphere, it's like, well, you know, we have several generations of single boys raised by single mothers and daughters. These single mothers are unhinged. They beat the shit out of their children. There's no father around to provide that masculine role model, to provide an even-handed maybe discipline or guidance in life, rather than a woman who's much more emotional and gonna, you know, flap the handle. I was talking to DDJ about that recently. I posted it on Twitter, but I knew DDJ had talked about it before. I was kind of trolling him, but you know, single mothers are very abusive to their children, and I don't think that's too surprising. They're very impulsive. They fuck guys raw without a condom. They get knocked up a lot of the time. These unwed single mothers that were never wed. And then the children get the same kind of treatment. They get impulsive, highly emotional, dysregulated parenting, and then of course the kids are fucked up, and a lot of them end up in the manosphere if they're lucky. And it's the ones who don't that we're talking about now, that they never get fathered by anyone. They're unable to father themselves. They don't find the manosphere, unfortunately, for whatever reason, or they don't find it until much later in life. And they didn't have a parent, father around. An uncle wasn't around. A grandfather wasn't around. A neighbor that loved them or cared about them. In terms of the community things, not there. There was no religious element to guidance. I mean, in terms of masculinity and things like that. It sucks, man. I mean, this has to change. Like, if this doesn't change, like, imagine 20 years from now, this shit keeps rolling like this, man. Or even 5 years from now. I mean, holy fuck.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of places where a young man can go and get some masculine guidance, whether it be here, whether it be, he can join the army, although that's getting ruined slowly by political correctness. But there are groups he can go work just with a bunch of men, and he's going to get some masculinity, some guidance. Men can learn that from masculine examples, even in books, historical books. For women, when they get into a group of other women, I've seen women intentionally instruct other women how to do things wrong so that they would look stupid, so that they couldn't compete with the woman giving the instructions for men. And I've had to complain about that.
Hence the phrase "man up." You never see a woman say to another woman, "Woman up."
Yeah.
Men don't mind helping to straighten the path of another man or a boy. We feel it's in us. As sure as you have a penis and testicles, your husbanding and fathering is part of you. I say it's genetic. And to not do it is to deny what is inherently in you, not just hardwired into your brain, but literally in your body. In your body.
This comment
you heard
here,
me
George,
say this a few.
Can you see this comment?
You heard me say this a few times, that the highest and best use of your dick is to make babies. Everything else is number two.
Yeah, George's comment here kind of hits in on this. Christopher Bailey wrote, "The male sex drive shares neurons that are responsible for aggressive behaviors for resource-gaining purposes." Makes sense. Without a father to teach this distinction, this aggression will erupt into society. That makes a lot of sense for what we're seeing, man, with all this stuff. I mean, especially when you stack that on top of this lockdown bullshit that we had for so long. Everybody's pent up. Like, I work from home for 10 years now or more. So for me, this was like, not much change. But for everyone else, a lot changed. And all that aggression that you could usually get out at least a little bit somewhere, even like at the gym. All the gyms are closed down. Well, what happened now? Fucking flipping cop cars over and shit. I wanted to actually shift topics a little bit. DDJ, did you want to hop in? I wanted to shift into another gear focus.
No. But I mean, I think we've kind of kicked this one to death. I think that really it's just, again, it's about fatherlessness. And I think that really in this time, I think as men and as fathers, I think we need to lead.
Yeah.
We need to show that, look, there has to be some common sense here, and we have to be able to see things what they are. And I understand that there's a lot of people who may disagree with my perception of this as a color revolution. But I also think that, being able to identify the problem is only half of what needs to happen. The other half of what needs to happen is we have to be able to solve the problem.
What do you mean by color revolution, by the way? Do you mean like communist stuff?
So if you look
and stuff?
Using Ukraine as an example, and there are many examples of color revolutions throughout the world, but using Ukraine as an example, it was a revolution, basically like a civil war that was started through protest and social media. Sound familiar? Like Antifa, like Twitter, like Google, like Facebook. And what they did is they censored the nationalistic voices in favor of these far left crazies. And the political ideas from the left, I think, the European left is a little bit different than our left, because the European left is more progressive, whereas our left is more liberal. But we do have our far left crazies as well. And so with that said, I think that we not only have to address this, it is a very, and Carnival is correct. It is a very controlled revolution, but the reason it's a controlled revolution is because there are elements in the United States that don't exist in many of these other countries. So one of the elements is we have a huge country. We have large amounts of land mass. We have a huge population. The other side of it is that we have a constitution. We have our First and Second Amendments to be specific. And so when it comes to these types of issue, yeah, exactly what Eric says. It's classic planned destabilization. That's what a color revolution does. And if they can destabilize 10% of the country in a long-term way, stats from the CIA say they'll be able to overcome the government that's there. And so what we, I think, as red-pilled men, as fathers, as grandfathers, as leaders, as voices, I think we need to be standing and saying, look, we have to bring sanity back, and we have to be able to hold the line, and we have to show what a strong man looks like, so that these weak men who are rioting, who don't know what fatherhood is like, can see what a good example is, a counter example. That's why you see in social media, you see people getting demonetized, or they're getting shadow banned, or they're having their channels hidden. It's not because they've done anything wrong. It's because they are presenting another way, another option, another path forward, a healthier path forward. That's not what the people who were behind this color revolution want. What they want is they want insecurity, they want a fight, they want the destabilization, and they want chaos. And the way you fight chaos or a chaotic environment is you bring order back in. And I think that as strong men, I think we're well positioned to do it, because there are a lot of men who now they're looking at their writing going, man, maybe I shouldn't have supported this. Maybe something else is different. And maybe this isn't about police brutality anymore. And now I look at the facts of police brutality around the country, and I look at the facts of all the subjects that are being discussed, which, by the way, we don't need to anymore. I realize maybe I'm not correct. And I say this as a man who used to be a progressive. I used to be a Bernie bro back in the day. And then I woke up and realized, oh my God, I'm fucking retarded. So, we have to be able, there's a lot of guys who have joined the walk away movement. There's a lot of guys who don't consider themselves traditional conservatives, and definitely don't consider themselves evangelicals. And I think that if we can, for lack of a better term, minister to that group of people.
Yeah. I think a lot of independent America is kind of like very mild libertarian. They don't vote. They're independent. They're not into the Republicans or Democrats, and they haven't been. But they generally like freedom. They like weed. They like not being harassed by cops for stupid shit. They just want to be left alone and, like you said, like go to the home to their family and like have a beer or something like that. But they're getting agitated, yeah, for sure. And I think they lean like basically towards a very simplistic form of the Constitution, or very like basic bitch overview of it, which is a lot better than nothing. Like, I'll take that. I'll take someone who has a basic respect for the Bill of Rights than someone who's like super hard left, obviously. These fucking communists and shit. Right. I think Donovan happening here too. I think we might pull him in. I want to shift gears a little bit though. I want to talk about before we wrap the show up, I want to talk about what you guys believe for the potential of civil war. We've talked about this a little bit throughout the show, but a more explicit discussion of it, especially from like a self-defense perspective and being a man, like arming yourself and being prepared for fuck knows what at this point. I mean, at this point for this year, if there was a fucking alien invasion, I wouldn't be surprised. Would anyone? Like, this year is nuts, man.
It's coming in October. No,
yeah.
The
Jesus.
important thing in a civil war is not how well armed you are, because so many Americans are well armed. That's mostly been taken care of. The question is we've gone through a few decades since the Second World War of this radical individualism where no one wants to cooperate with anyone. No one wants to form any community bonds. Nobody knows their neighbor. And what's happened is if, the way I see a civil war happening is that groups are attracted to the cities because they can get away with anything they want. Those groups start making raids on the urban areas around the cities. And that then turns into a civil war between the urban and the real urbanites in the cities and the suburban areas. That kind of a thing means that you need to know your neighbors. You need to know who you can rely on. You need to know who is not going to run away. And you see this now. I've retweeted about a dozen videos of men getting together, armed up, some in New York. So in the Bronx in New York, the Italians were getting together and saying, no rioters in our area.
The Russians too. The Russians in their jumpsuits, the Adidas man, they came out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what needs to happen. Now, some of these ethnically united groups, they have a tendency to work that. But us out in the urban areas, we need to do the same thing. Go talk to your neighbors. This weekend, you should be out talking to your neighbors. Ask your kids, who are you friends with? Let's go talk to their parents and get to know everybody.
Yeah.
And talk to them and be right up front, man. This is my name. This is what I do when I move to a new place. I print out a piece of paper. This is my name. This is my phone number. This is my wife and my kids' names, so that if you need to address us, you don't feel shy. If you need to ask me something, you don't feel shy. I know all my neighbors right away. I'll often bring, and I'll give them that and like a chocolate for their family. And it's simple things that we used to do when we moved somewhere. We got to know everyone. Now we don't do that. That's more important than being armed. As a single individual, you're an easy target. Standing together with your neighbors, you're a militia, and you're no longer a target.
So, question for the panel. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, it's interesting, to circle back just a little bit there. It's what if you have shit neighbors? What if your neighbors are incapable of standing up, when you can definitely look through someone like that and say, no, they aren't going to stand up. They aren't going to take a stand. It was mentioned, I think by DDJ, strong men need to stand up and do the things that they need to do to protect or do whatever. Time after time, since all this rioting crap has been going on, you see strong men standing up for their businesses and the mob jumping them and crushing them because it's one man.
Yeah, a lot of times too, they're not using guns, man. They're using fucking swords and shit. Like, they need to bust the guns out.
It's horrible. It's horrible. In Dallas, that guy got his head cracked open.
Yep.
With a friggin' skateboard. And so how do you deal with the mob?
30-round magazines.
You get on the
mag is how you deal with the mob.
You get on the roof. You get on the roof and use the mag. You do Korean style. The rooftop Koreans, man.
There's a question that every man needs to ask himself. If we're in a grid down situation and you call the cops, at the moment, many people are calling the police officers, and the dispatch is saying, we're in like a civil war here in the city and there's no cops, so do whatever you have to.
Yep.
Well, if that's the situation, who would you call if someone's trying to kick your door down and your wife and kids are in your house? Because they can firebomb you from outside and the gun's not going to help.
And let me say this. If you have to walk outside with a sword, you've already lost. Okay. Yeah. Because the other issue that you have with a lot of these people is that, number one, okay, so you walk outside with a sword. How long have you been training with a sword? Do you actually train? These guys they're not training with their weapons that they're using. Yeah. And frankly, they're reacting. They're not being proactive, and they're acting emotionally in an effort to save their business.
Dude, did you guys see that one guy with the Halo sword? That one dude had a fucking Halo weapon, man. Yeah. Like, it was nuts. He jumped out of his truck and started chasing people with it.
Well, but my point is that the time to protect your neighborhood is not when the riots start. It's like what Noah says. You get to know who your neighbors are, and you foster those relationships. And so even if they are weaker than you psychologically or emotionally, hopefully your friendship will fortify at least a couple of those people so they can deal with it. And yeah, you have to defend yourself, but you have to be smart in the way you defend it. If it's like the woman and the man in New York who they walked outside as the people were breaking the window, and the woman's standing there and she has no self-preservation instinct whatsoever, and she starts getting pounded on because she thinks she still lives in a civil society, and she was not prepared psychologically or emotionally for that level of conflict. And frankly, what happened to her was completely wrong. But on the same token, don't put yourself in harm's way unnecessarily. Be smart about it. And part of that being smart is, yes, an AR-15 or a shotgun, 50-round magazine, going to the gym, being physically able to take care of yourself in case somebody takes your weapon away, being able to have a backup that you can use. These are common sense things that we used to teach our children and that we used to teach our families. And the problem that you have is that even with law enforcement, for example, goddamn, unholster your weapon. Do not let your police departments be overrun because you refuse to unholster your weapon. You are there to protect us, and if you let them run the police department, all you're doing is enabling the rioters and emboldening them. And so, yeah, maybe you might get fired from your job, but you know what? You're probably going to live. You're not going to be that cop in Las Vegas who got shot in the back of the head because he had no situational awareness and he had nobody watching his back. So, while we should be leaders and we should do those things, the time to actually start that and to foster those relationships, it's like Noah when he built the ark. When did he build it? He built it before the flood. And that's the attitude that we as patriotic Americans need to take. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Fact check, Noah, is that true?
Yes, long before. In fact,
no, I meant building the ark. Did you build it? No.
It is funny because when you get a name, when you're given a name, that name does affect how you view yourself later on, and if the name is connected to a historical character. So I've always been with that mindset of prepare before the storm, and it's been kind of drilled into me because of my namesake. But it is important what DDJ was mentioning is get your shit together now. The time to do it was last year. Doing it now means you're doing it at the last minute. Doing it tomorrow, it's too late.
Yeah. So I want to do a question for the whole panel. We can kind of go around whatever order you guys want to hop in, one at a time. Do you think civil war in America is inevitable at this point? And as an example, whatever, if that's this year or next year, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this on Twitter, like Tanner Guzzi. I mean, and I'll give you an example. Can anyone at this point imagine a peaceful November 4th, the day after the election, if Trump wins?
Oh my God!
At this point, it's hard to imagine that. Like, no matter what the outcome is, he could crush it in a landslide. He could win by 10 electoral votes, like a small margin. Whatever the outcome is, if he wins, I don't see how it's a non-violent day. I want it to be, but I don't know how that's going to happen at this point, given what's going on months before that. So that's an open question for the panel. I'd like everyone to jump in on it if you have something to say on it.
I think what just happened is the biggest fundraiser for the Republican Party just happened in the past 3 months with COVID and with the riots. In the same way that my local sheriff's department is flooded with gun permits. This right here. I downloaded 6 gun permit applications for the females in my life. This morning, I was teaching a female. This is a 12 gauge shotgun. This is a 45. This is a 9mm. This is a 223 that goes into an AR-15. And I'm going to show you the kick and the recoil that each one has. And I was teaching them. They're like, oh my God, that's scary. I'm like, be comfortable with scary. You know what's scarier is someone breaking into your house and not having me around to defend you. So let me put it this way. I think what has happened is going to guarantee a landslide. I don't care what anyone says. Agnieszka was telling me, she goes, George, she's watching this from Poland. And, she was raised under communism. You guys don't know that. She had to learn 3 languages, Polish, English, and Russian. Okay? Now check this out. She was raised under communism with tanks in the streets. She went to school under that whole hardcore propaganda thing, that whole thing. She knows it very well. So as a neutral observer, and there's no riots in Poland. I just want you to know that. None of this is happening in Poland. None of it. She says, George, this reminds me of the revolutions.
Yep. Next up.
The prediction I made when Trump won the election back in 2016, I said, what this win has guaranteed is that the election in 2020 is going to be the largest voter turnout in U.S. history. More people are going to vote in this election than in any other election because, of course, Donald Trump is the quote unquote devil. Do I see violence happening? If I had to put money on it, that's a toss up, Anthony. Could it get violent? Absolutely. Because we saw how they sort of, these protest crybabies. Oh my God, I can't believe Trump won and Hillary lost. People crying in the streets. My 5-year-old son came and asked me, do you have to live under Trump? Which was just absolute bullshit because 5-year-olds don't ask their mothers questions about politics and elections, and if he is,
remember too, Donovan,
raising him the wrong way.
Even the feminists were burning cars and shit back on. The feminists just were out, doing crazy shit back on Inauguration Day. So after he won, but it was
that I didn't know.
Yeah, they lit a limousine on fire and they were doing crazy shit. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put it to you this way. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if Trump wins in a landslide, and I think he is, I think that it is far more likely than not that things are going to get violent. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. I'm sure the government is probably going to have, things in place at the polling sites, things of that nature. But I'll make a prediction. Donald Trump's going to win a landslide. It's not even close. And the reason for this is because the left is so in the news media, they are so in the pocket, in the tank for the left. It's almost like they're getting him reelected themselves. Anything that happens bad in this country, they blame Trump. COVID-19 hit, Donald Trump's fault. George Floyd gets killed by a police officer, Donald Trump's fault. Your 10-year-old daughter fell and scraped her knee, that's Donald Trump's fault too. The more they paint, and everything, like, it's so funny, all these investigations and what the left doesn't realize they're doing on social media, people on social media, is that they're just giving more fuel to his supporters. The more people see this attack, the more compelled they're going to be to go and vote. And I remember I was actually dating.
Look at you, Donovan. You've gotten kicked off YouTube who knows how many times, and that's bullshit.
I've been kicked off twice.
I mean, have you broken any laws? No. You're just speaking your mind about issues, and you're criticizing this, talking about it, but you get kicked off. It's bullshit. It pisses you off is what it does. It piss me off. I'd be fucking, if my channels got deleted, I'd be fucking angry as fuck. Yeah.
I was. And thankfully for me, my channel had I think it had like 11,000 subscribers at that time. Lord only knows how many I'd have now. But the last thing I'm going to say is what happened back in 2016. The people that elected Donald Trump, that was the silent majority. Even I thought Hillary was going to win because that's what everybody was saying. But the silent majority got in their deplorable pickup trucks, went to the polling sites, and voted for Donald Trump. And they've seen nothing but 4 years of them eviscerating Donald Trump and impeachments and all this other kind of stuff. They don't even have to use logic and rationale. They're like, you know what? The more they push this way, the more I'm going to push back.
Well, Donovan, look too at the way even the white liberals like Joe Biden treat blacks. You ain't black.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know who to vote for, you ain't black. Like there's a lot. I mean, there was a poll that came out the other day that 41% of likely black American voters they approve of Trump right now. So yes. I mean that's a big the black vote's important. Like this is so that's crazy. If Donald Trump said imagine if Mitt Romney in 2012 said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't white or some shit. I mean, that would be like, holy fuck, what? Like, what the fuck? So anyway,
the black people who are against Donald Trump are black people who are on either welfare or black people who just haven't. Because when I was the very first time I voted was in 1996. I was in college. I voted for Bill Clinton because I'm a college kid. Of course, I'm on the left. I'm in college. I'm educated. Well, the older you get, the more to the right, the more you move to the center. Now I'm 42 years old, and I'm not voting for anybody on the left because my lifestyle has changed. I think that the blacks who are not in favor of Trump, I think a lot of them they're looking for a free handout. A lot of them, their political beliefs just don't align with Donald Trump, and if that's the case, that's fine. Yeah. But what we have to understand, as in the black community, just because someone shares your political ideologies, just because someone shares your skin tone, does not mean that they have your best interests in heart. Case in point, Barack Obama.
Yep. George, you want to comment before we get Phil or Noah or DDJ in?
Yep. Trump was America's favorite Democrat before he ran for president. I just want to remind everyone that. He was invited to all the parties, Hillary Clinton, the whole bit, Oprah. Let's get real, okay? I'll just leave that there. Second thing is this. In 2008, when it was John McCain versus Barack Obama, I couldn't stand McCain because he was what they call a reach across the aisle Republican. He was more of a reach around as far as I'm concerned, because that's basically what he would have done. You know who I wanted for president in 2008? The qualified fucking man, Herman Cain. And I'm passionate about that. Yeah. I could give a fuck what skin color is in the oval orifice. I could give a fuck. All right? I want somebody fucking qualified. I thought Herman Cain was so fucking badass. He has the fucking resume and the track record. How did the left fucking take him down? He had an affair.
That's it.
So the very party that is all for perversion and sodomy was hammering my candidate, he would have been so much fucking better than Barack Obama. And he had to take a back seat because that's the left's first attack. What was the first fucking attack they did? Impeachment 1.0 was Stormy Daniels.
Yep.
Stormy Daniels. That didn't work. Impeachment 2.0 was Russian collusion. Impeachment 3.0, Russian collusion. Or COVID.
Ukraine, well, the Ukraine,
riots.
the collusion bullshit. Yeah, they keep making shit up. Yeah, the impeachments.
Vote resume, not party or skin color.
Yeah. 2008 was fucked, man. McCain and Barack Obama both sucked. I was a Ron Paul fan myself. 08 and 12. I mean,
McCain never stood a chance. McCain never stood a chance. McCain versus Obama, that was the equivalent of Larry Holmes versus a disheveled Muhammad Ali. That was never going to be. That was never going to be a fight.
Absolutely.
Yep. DDJ, Noah, Phil, you guys want to hop in on this? Is civil war in America inevitable, or mass violence at an even greater scale than we see currently?
Go ahead, Noah.
Trump as the last opportunity for America to heal its wounds, or to have a national divorce, one or the other. Trump is the man that understands bankruptcies, understands how to separate businesses, and understands divorce. You know, he's probably the president with the most experience in these three subjects. You're either going to need a national divorce so that people are a little bit, the left and right can separate. I'm not talking a racial, so I'm talking left and right separation. Perhaps the cities become more independent, but have less influence over the rest of the country, something like that. Or there will be violence. You'll have 4 years to figure it out, because after that, I think the right is going to be sick of waiting. Especially if there's a continuation of this violence. If they do what they've been saying they're going to do and start getting on buses and going out to the countryside and burning farms, Africa style, how long do you think the rednecks are going to put up with that, and the rural people and the urbanites that are heavily armed? America is more heavily armed at this point in history than it's ever been before.
Yep.
There's never been this many guns in private hands.
There's over 500 million guns in America, I think, and over 100 million gun owners or something.
You know what?
That we know of.
You know what I'm seeing on Twitter? 2019, toxic masculinity. If you're a man, there's something wrong with you. 2020, oh man, these guys with guns are making me hot. That's what the women are saying. It's making me hot. I'm almost itching to see some violence. You remember that the Secret Service sniper? The guy kind of looks like a model.
John Melvo. Melvo.
So this guy is giving women orgasms across the country. Spontaneous orgasm. Men are no longer going to look at the nice guy anymore that was being promoted up until about last November. They're now looking at this. This is what's making women hot. Women are telling us that. This is important to watch this, because as much as we like to think men lead, a lot of times we lead into what women are happening to find attractive at the moment. And it's kind of pathetic, but that's the way it often happens. And when men are seeing, that's what women want. They want to see strong men. Women were never attracted to weak men. They just pretended that in the news. They can't pretend any longer.
Let's say that one more time. Women were never attracted to weak men. I'm pretty sure that's true since the dawn of our species.
Yeah.
Well,
otherwise we wouldn't be here.
They like weak men to be around because they can control them and get stuff from them, but they don't want to have sex with them. They don't want to have kids with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Phil, DDJ?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump on this one. I would say that he's definitely going to fold up whoever his opponent is in this election year. And the more the left tries to control him and get him under their thumb, the more that it's just going to throw fuel on the fire for him to win. I personally think that the violence may ebb a little bit before the election, but if he does win, I think that they're going to protest and riot, and it's going to get out of hand. And I think the best thing anybody can do is definitely fortify themselves with whatever means necessary. Your home, your family, do a little education with your children, your woman, kind of like what George is doing with his. And
George got a lot of women.
Yeah, and then hopefully it never has to come to that, Hopefully it never has to really come to that. But if it does, and I got to counter what Noah says, on dealing with your neighbors. I couldn't rely on my neighbors. I got two single college girls on one side, and I got a friggin' lawn chair on the other. You know, these people, I mean, you know, and that's, yeah, I am. We're moving, and I'm in the process of doing that right now. And it's like the new house is like, okay, so we got gates, we got 2 fence lines, we got cameras, perimeter lighting, you know, and it's just like, okay, as this thing keeps evolving, I'm like, okay, well, let's put this on the house too. Let's get this set up, you know, anti-kick doors and whatnot like that. And it's just
panic rooms, things like that.
Yeah, it's not really necessarily a panic room, but it's, you know, I've got it set up to where I can make my last stand and make it count.
That's right.
Yeah. And, you know, it really saddens me because I think that as Americans, you know, we're better than this. Yeah. You know, and there is I mean, I'm a blue collar, I own 2 businesses. I do construction, and it's like, I watch what's happening to this country, and you know, the fact that I can't get people to even want to work because they're too friggin' soft-handed these days. I mean, if I hire a 20-year-old guy to come and work with me, they don't even make it a week. They can't even handle, I mean, they're too soft.
Damn.
Jesus.
They are too friggin' soft. And I challenge anybody in America to go by any big commercial construction site. Everybody working there is what? 35 and above. They're men.
Yeah.
This younger demographic is friggin' soft, and they lack intensity.
Yep. They're like fathers, man. They're raised by single moms. This is the result.
Absolutely. You know, and I hate to see it, but I think that there will be violence, whether it's an all-out civil war, like back when there was the first Civil War. I mean, that if you've studied anything on the first Civil War in this country, it was extremely brutal.
Yeah.
It was
600,000 Americans died, which is the modern equivalent of over 5 million people getting
absolutely killed. You know, the Confederates, you know, they went through and took their people's food and farms and burned their own farms of their own people in the South, you know, and it just impoverished this country. So I think Trump will win, and I think he will bring us through this on the other side, and the left will continue to fight him at every turn. Yep. And what they hate about him so much is the fact that no matter what they do to bring him down, he finds a way around, and he finds to make that negative, toxic poison that they're throwing on him a success. Look at the friggin' stupid virus crap, and now look at the market.
Yep.
It's over 27 yesterday. Come on.
That's why they call him Teflon Don. Nothing sticks. It just bounces off.
It's great, you know, and George was absolutely right. You know, they've constantly constantly trying to throw shit on him, and it doesn't stick. Yeah. So I believe he'll win again.
Listen,
there has to be violence.
Why just?
There has to be violence.
Donovan?
I think the reason why Donald Trump, I think the reason why Donald Trump, nothing can stick to him is because he handles it like a fucking man. That's what it is, dude. All the left does all day is shit test him. And Donald Trump will agree and amplify. He'll reframe. Donald Trump is the first, dude, he's the first president that actually says what he wants. He's constantly eviscerated in the media, as was Barack Obama. Not to the degree that Trump is, obviously, but Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, presidents are always getting stones thrown at them. Donald Trump is the first president to throw stones back. And then they want to talk about, well, he's not very presidential. Well, maybe if you act like a media member, maybe he'll act presidential. The media wants to be able to attack Donald Trump and throw stones. Like even when he walked across the street to that church, one of the media members said, "Is that your Bible?" Like, come on with that, right? Like there's always there's always an angle. And the media, especially the left-wing media, what they like to do is they'll make a statement by asking a question. By asking Donald Trump, "Is that your Bible?" That makes the statement that says that's not really your Bible, which means that this is just a little publicity stunt. This is what they do. And the reason why it never works is because Donald Trump handles it like a fucking man. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, we'll put. Before we get DDJ, know how to go. Noah Ravoy, thanks for being on the show today. You can visit him at smv4k.com. And Hunter Drew you can find at thefraternityofexcellence.com or thefamilyalpha.com. Before we get DDJ's take on this, Yeah. So with DDJ, one of the main reasons I asked this question, I should have prefaced it with it, is it's been about 155 years since the last civil war in this country. And I was thinking last night, I was like, did we really expect that to go on indefinitely? Like, how many years until another one happens? For forever? Is that a reasonable expectation? 200 years, 250, 300? Like, at what point? 155 years is a long fucking time. Between the American Revolution, obviously, and the first Civil War, I don't know how many years it was exactly, but it was 155. That was for damn sure. So, DDJ, with that said, can we get your input on this? Is civil war inevitable? Is mass violence at a much greater scale than we currently see inevitable?
Well, I think what we're not going to see is we're not going to see a civil war in the style that we saw it for the first Civil War. And with that said, it's my view that the Civil War has already started, that we are in the midst of a color revolution right now that has taken hold in all of the tier 1 and many of the tier 2 cities. We've seen a lot of pushback, for example, in Washington, D.C. Trump brought in the National Guard. The mayor of Washington, D.C. just evicted them from their lodgings. They were staying in a local hotel, and she said, you can't do it, and kicked them out. We're seeing this kind of pushback everywhere. You see in Minneapolis, they're trying to defund the police so that the mob rule can take hold. Even prominent media personalities are saying that this is a revolution right now. And yes, I think it was George Bruno who said that, his friend from the Eastern Bloc says that this looks like what happened over there. It does, because that's exactly what's happening over here. They're trying to foment an Eastern style revolution, and they're hoping to throw everybody in chaos leading up to it so that nobody knows what's going to happen. It's a big bait and switch with smoke and mirrors, and it's being run primarily and led primarily by big tech and by social media. And you'll notice that everybody lost their mind the second Trump said, I'm going to put out an executive order regarding China. I'm going to put out an executive order regarding big tech. And then within days, everybody lost their mind because the COVID narrative didn't work. And this was a 2-stage thing. Even though the COVID is real, and even though there's a lot of people that have died because of it, they're finding out that the majority of the people who died, they died as a result of underlying issues, or they died of something else and it was reframed as COVID. Now, but pivoting off of that and going back to the election, I agree with everybody else. Trump's going to win by a landslide. It's going to be the violence between now and then. It's going to ebb and flow, and they're going to try to keep it going until the election to keep everybody stressed out and scared. And the left always doubles down. Feminists always double down. Communists always double down, and they always project what they do upon the other side. And then every time the patriotic Americans, and this isn't an argument between the left and the right. This conflict is not about liberal versus conservative, or progressive versus conservative. This is about American patriots versus un-American communists. And they want to destroy capitalism. They want to destroy our country. Yes. They want to destroy our way of life. They want to destroy our Constitution, and they want us to be afraid, and they want to intimidate us to do that. And by the way, that is the very definition of terrorism. So patriotic Americans who stand up, there's going to be this civil unrest is going to continue. It's going to continue to be a color revolution. It's going to ebb and flow between now and the election cycle. But Donald Trump is aware of it. And his actions over the last 20 to 30 days have demonstrated that not only is he aware of it, he was well prepared. Even when he said, look, I'm activating the National Guard around the country. They're mobilizing right now as we speak. And if I have to bring the military in, I will. I'll be honest with you. When I talked about these things 2 years ago, when I first saw the color revolution starting, I really didn't think it was going to come to this. And I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. Yeah. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to renew the American social contract, with the blood, sweat, and tears of patriots. And the fact that so many people are willing to stand up, it's like what Donovan said earlier about the silent majority. We're going to see it again. And we're going to see a lot of people come together as community. And honestly, in my lifetime, as horrible as it is, I'm really happy that Trump is the president during this time. And I'm really comforted by the fact that there are so many patriots who stand against this left-wing authoritarianism.
Amen. Amen. Before we get Donovan to comment, just a quick thing. I thought this comment from this viewer was interesting. Wait, so your thesis is that violence has to happen? I think he got this from listening.
Oh my God.
And I don't think anyone I could see how you misinterpreted that, but I don't think it's the case. I don't want mass violence to happen. I don't want these mass riots to continue. I don't want civil war to happen. I think the vast majority of Americans that are armed to the teeth don't want that. And that's what's so crazy about this. Mike Cernovich tweeted the other day, you're seeing the unarmed population trying to start an actual civil war with the armed population. It's fucking crazy.
Yes.
You're gonna get yourself
Yes.
killed. Like, you need to stop. It's like someone who's doing, it's like someone who's about to get their ass kicked, you know, out at a bar or something. It's like, bro, you need to chill. You need to chill. You need to chill. You need to chill. Because the dude's drunk. He's gonna get fucking wrecked. He's gonna lose some teeth. It's like, and they don't want to listen. And it's like, if you keep this fucking path, you're gonna fucking get kicked in the teeth, and like, you're gonna get fucked up. Go ahead, Donovan.
Yeah. Listen, I got one last thing before I go here. I'm not smart enough to be able to predict whether or not there's going to be a civil war. I don't know if there's going to be one. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But I will say this: if there is a civil war, it's not going to be blacks versus white. No, the civil war is going to be the masculine versus the feminine. That is where the real civil war is. Basically, it's almost, and I don't want to make it micro with the manosphere versus feminism, but that's kind of what it is. We have one group. Most people in this country appear to be on the side of feminism. Egalitarian relationships, men and women are equal, they're created the same, etc., etc. Then we have the manosphere. We're like, listen, we need to go back to the patriarchy. Men and women have their place in relationship. Men are bigger, faster, stronger. Women are nurturers. They're good mothers. They belong in the kitchen. Dad belongs, working on the railroad all the live long day. It's your traditionalists versus your progressives. And if there is a civil war, and this is not a black and white thing, because there are a lot of black people who are staunchly on the side of masculinity, of bringing back the patriarchy. But I'll say this: if there's a civil war, we're gonna wipe them the fuck out. So you mean to tell me that a bunch of namby-pamby, limp-wristed, anti-gun, anti-war people are gonna go to war with people who own guns, people who like to lift weights, people who admit that they actually like seeing big tits on a girl, people who come out of the closet as a heterosexual male who actually likes women?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that those people have a chance? Even though they're the vast majority of people, we're gonna kick their fucking ass. So is there going to be civil war? Probably not. But I'll tell you what. The left thinks they want a civil war. They don't, dude. They don't want a civil war. They think they do, but unfortunately for them, civil wars are not fought on social media and fucking TV. That's what that is. They think, well, we're going to go to war. Ain't nobody going to war. You guys sit in your little fucking cubicles in your fucking mom's basement. Yes, I'm using the feminist playbook right there. But all they do is sit behind their fucking computer all day and talk shit. That's not a civil war. A civil war is fought on fucking battlefields. I don't know if there's going to be a civil war, but if there is one, dude, the other side is done. That's all there is to it, man.
You actually mentioned,
guys.
Oh, yeah, before you go, Donovan, real quick, exactly what you just mentioned. This is from 2018, if you remember, Donovan. Twitter's CEO Jack Dorsey promotes civil war.
Oh, yes.
This is like, a year and a half ago. He was actually calling for this shit. Like by literal, explicitly, and it's like, you're fucking crazy. Like, especially him. He's such a fucking dweeb too. It's like they're fucking delusional, man.
Dude, I could kick his ass right-handed. Like, for real, man. Like, come on. Come on.
Yep.
But thanks for being on the show, guys.
Yeah, man. Appreciate being on the
show. Listen, Phil, you and I need to talk at some point, because I'm thinking about building a house myself, and I'm on your level. Anti-kicking doors, bulletproof windows, panic rooms, plural. Maybe my house is a panic room. So I think that would be a very interesting discussion for the two of us to have, because I'm one of those extreme, don't take any chances, don't fuck with me and my type of deal. So
let's do it. Not a problem.
All right, man.
See you,
Take
Donovan.
it easy, guys. Good discussion, and we'll talk soon, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. All right, boys. I think with that, we'll start just kind of wrap up the show. It's been a great discussion. I appreciate all you guys' time, including the guys who are no longer here. Noah, Hunter, Donovan, anyone else? It's been a big show. This has been great. I think we should obviously continue the conversation in future episodes as this shit unfolds. But every day is a new adventure, man. Today, especially tonight's supposed to be a big night. Supposedly there's 1 million protesters that are going to march. That could be an exaggeration, but we'll see. On DC. And the rest of even Orlando, they're worried about. Orlando's had a lot of peaceful protesters, minimal looting and stuff like that, nothing too crazy. But even today, they're worried it's going to pop off. So today's the day, I think, that we'll see what happens now. But every day is a new adventure with this fucking shit show, man.
crazy. It is absolutely crazy. You know, where I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, I mean, it was bad over in Dallas, but it's mostly left on that side of the line over there.
Hmm.
But, you know, George, where you're at, you're in Philly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, be safe. You too, you know, all you guys, everybody in America, be safe.
Yeah. DDJ's up near Denver, I think, too. I mean, it's a lot of shit
Yeah.
going up there, too.
Yeah, I mean, but I'll tell you what, the police have actually stepped in. And so the police out here have stepped in a lot, and they are doing a great job as far as everything is concerned. So they're actually, I mean, even though I disagree with some of what they're doing, they're doing everything they can to push forward. So
one question for you, DDJ, just real quick before we hop off here, I know we got to go, is, you know, some of the video I've seen is the police officers and National Guard taking a knee with the protesters. Do you not think that is a sign of weakness on the side of the police?
It absolutely is. I would absolutely
not go counter against to what we need to get this to quiet down.
Yep.
Well, I think the problem that you're going to see is, and I think the big mistake here is that when it comes to these protesters, you can't give in to them, and because you can't give in to them, you know, you have to be able to really stand and deliver. And that's the problem is that nobody's standing and delivering. And the nice thing that I've seen, at least with Denver, is that even though they've kind of taken a knee a little bit, what I've seen is that they're still arresting people. They're still hammering people. They're still doing what they have to do to dominate the streets. They understand the value of that. And I think that's extremely important. And we're not seeing a lot of that when it comes to a lot of these other cities. So yeah, I mean, look, if you take a knee, there's a problem. There's a serious problem, and you shouldn't be taking a knee with anybody. And frankly, you know, I think that again, it's one of those scenarios where if you take a knee and you show that sign of weakness, again, that's a serious problem. So you have to stand strong, and law enforcement has to understand that the people are behind them. You know, absolutely.
Yeah. DDJ, maybe you can comment on this too. I think law enforcement, they should not be kneeling. This is super fucking bad idea for 10 different reasons. Even this happened in the kneeling shit happened in Nazi Germany just before shit popped off. Like it's super dangerous. However, I think law enforcement have the ability to do this without getting, it's not against the law. I don't know, at least in most states. But the National Guard, I don't think they're allowed to do this. This is like there's codes for their conduct. They can't do this. They can get, I don't know if they can get arrested or charged or whatever, but I don't think, from what I was reading, the National Guard, it's different than the law enforcement. They can't do this. Same with the military. They can't do all this kneeling bullshit. They can do the dancing, I guess. So apparently that's a way to de-escalate some stuff, which is kind of weird. But the kneeling is like a big no-no. So do you have any insight on that legally, DDJ?
Oh yeah. Well, even with the law enforcement, you know, you're not supposed to give your ground. It's like giving your gun to the enemy. You know, It's the same thing with the National Guard and the military. Absolutely, you shouldn't be doing this. And the fact that people are doing this is a problem. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's just so afraid. Like I said, they're afraid to unholster their weapon. And the reality is, if they don't unholster their weapon, they've lost before they've ever started. Yeah,
that's right. George, do you have input before we wrap up? I saw you doing something there.
Kneeling is a sign of submission.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a sign of weakness. The last time we saw the American military kneel was on their own boat in the Strait of Hormuz as a group of our men were captured by Iranians. They were all on their knees like this, denouncing America on camera at gunpoint.
Yep.
Case number one. Case number two, we spent 8 fucking years with a president who did what to every other foreign leader? What did he do?
Bow and kneel.
He submitted. He submitted.
Yeah. Yep.
He submitted. Fuck that. Fuck it. You shake hands with other leaders. You don't bow to them. You come from a position of strength, not of weakness and submission. Heads bowed are a submissive mood. It's a submissive gesture. It's unconsciously communicating you are weaker than your opponent. No, stand up, stand strong, be proud of what you are, defend the country, abide by the Constitution. If you kneel, you lose business, you get fired, you get a dishonorable discharge forever. Someone has to say it. It might as well be me.
Yeah, I love Angry Bruno. This is great. Fuck yeah.
Good shit.
It's patriotic, Bruno. And that's, again, you don't take a knee. You know, there's a reason why people say on your knees, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's right. All right, gentlemen. This has been an excellent show. Been going about 2 hours now. Fuck yeah. I look forward to seeing you guys in the future episodes. Redman Group, appreciate you guys watching today live. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share it. It helps the videos get traction and attention on YouTube from the algorithms and shit, to the extent we're not getting shadow banned. It's been a great episode. Appreciate you guys' time. Make sure you check out 21 Convention. Fuck yeah. Tickets, I was going to put tickets on sale to the main event tomorrow, but given that half the country's burning, I think I'll wait for the fires to go out and shit. But tickets will be on sale soon for the main event. You can also get Patriarch tickets, which are currently on sale. And the women's convention too, of course, for the ladies watching. Get your Make Women Great Again on. Time to make Women Great Again. Fuck yeah. And when tickets go on sale as well for the main event, we're going to also put out like a joint 21 Summit ticket for the men. And you'll be able to go to both events, 21 Convention World event, the main one, as well as the Fatherhood version, the Patriarch edition. They're all going on at the same time in Orlando. I actually was meeting with the hotel management yesterday. I'm a video director at the hotel. Beautiful venue, best we ever had, biggest we ever had.